Hey guys, we're going to take a quick minute and talk about photographing black horses. Because a lot of people have asked, because it is really hard because black horses absorb a lot of light, they don't have a lot of reflective surface, and so there's not a lot of definition there. We're going to use a model horse behind me because I would cite somebody else's footage, but that's not really kind of fair and I can't really cite specifically. Alright, so we're going to use this model horse right here. Okay. So we have two sources of light. We have an overhead light, we have this light, and then we have this ambient light. We're going to adjust this light, we're going to cut that light out, and then we're going to turn this light off. Okay, so we're going to give you different scenarios for lighting. So now the first point I'm going to make out here is there's not a lot of distance between this model and that background, and they're very similar in tone. So when you have like horses that you're shooting against, maybe a forest background or something of a very dark nature on a dark horse, you're going to have kind of that low-key effect where you're going to be dependent on your light to define the top line of the horse and the legs. Now when you're shooting low-key, which is low light, low definition, low contrast, and you're shooting a lot of speed and action, these legs are going to blur out and you're going to have a lot of problem getting these legs to be very crisp in your photography. Okay, now let's take some big factor out here, okay? So this is very directed light, and there is a video for me about doing very controlled lighting. It involves roses because they were still photography. But you'll see this very typically in barns where people will shoot very directed photography, and usually it's in a doorway or something, and it gives you a really strong top line. And because this light here cuts off light from the background and it's focused forward, it's not very bright in the background, so you get a lot of contrast between the background and the foreground being the subject of the, being the horse. However, because this light is overhead, you wind up losing a lot of definition in the undercarriage. It softens the muscles, and if you were to shoot this and this horse was actually in motion, these legs would be very, very, very blurry because there's not enough light for your camera to keep up with the motion. Okay, so notice also you're having a loss of definition between the forelegs and the back legs. Okay, and by that I don't mean front legs and back legs, I'm talking the leg that's on the left and the leg that's on the right. Okay, you're also losing a lot of definition and contrast in the nose. So I mean, it's not a bad shot, but it's not going to make for a very good reference shot. Okay, now once we add our overhead light back in up here, then we illuminate our background more. Okay, so there's less contrast between our subject and the background. And if we take out this top line, you lose the contrast between the subject and the background. So it's harder to tell when you need to use this in the future for drawing where everything is. Okay, now let's talk about soft lighting. Now it's not quite the sunny day that it was when I originally filmed this, but there's only like 25% of this doorway. We're going to add to this. We're going to dial up how much ambient light we have. So a lot of ambient side light right now, okay? The reason we opened up the blinds over here is because it's going to change your source of where your light is coming from. So it's going to be lower. So just like right now where you have kind of Rembrandt lighting where one side of my face is lit up and the other side is in shadow, it's kind of flattering, and it's used widely in photography. If you don't believe me, take a minute and go look. In a horse, you're going to have a little bit more illumination than that undercarriage, okay? And this becomes important when you're looking for reference pictures and maybe like when you just want a cleaner, crisper shot. So here's the difference. So now we have more light. So we have more light coming at the side of it. So you have a little bit more definition in the legs. And keep in mind, this is rounded. So just like if you're drawing a cylinder, you're going to have shadow on each side. Unless you have side lighting, you're going to have light coming from behind me. So your high points are the points closest to where your source of light is. And everything else is going to be falling into shadow because that's away from your light source. So this isn't too bad. And right now you have a really strong definition for the outside of your subject. Sorry, autofocus. So you have a really strong line for your subject from the background, and because we have the overhead light and we have a directed light from underneath, your background is illuminated too, so it does complement each other. Let's see what happens if we add in this top light. So now we have a really strong top line because we have a lot of illumination. We've got a pretty hard light here, but we've increased the shadow in the undercarriage, so we lose the definition in that leg. If this is a live action shot, this is not going to work. These legs are going to be blurry. Take it away. More even lighting. Okay. Now if we take away the overhead light from up here, and effectively recreate what it's like to shoot like in a coliseum or in a barn or an indoor arena, that's when you wind up with some complications. Because if we go back here and we look at it, because your light source is just from here and there's nothing overhead, or at least nothing strong enough to compete with the overhead, you lose, and it's hard to argue this because honestly, that's better. There's a little bit harder way to tell the definition between the horse and the background, because the background's both the same tone and color, and the light behind me is illuminating the horse just as much as it's illuminating the background. So there's very little in the difference of depth of field, and there's very little to make the horse stand out from the background. So this is when you're shooting in a coliseum or arena, something of that nature, and you're just like, everything's coming out blurry, I don't understand why. That's why. So a nice marriage of the two. You're gonna need a lot of light. I would almost recommend, if you're shooting black horses, especially if you're doing speed and action, galloping scenes, liberty scenes, to make sure you're shooting outside almost on an overcast day, so you don't have hot spots, and to make sure that your subject is far enough away from the background, or your background is light enough to make your horse stand out from the background. Other than that, let's get into the drawing part of this, because I think you're going to enjoy it. I'm going to try and take a different take on this tutorial than I've seen in previous tutorials or what I've seen in other channels. So to start with, I'm going to start with 15 quick sketches of 15 different horses, 8 headshots, 7 full body positions, and your challenge is to use the information you've gathered from part 1 of this tutorial and see if you can figure out if the horse is a Friesian or not. Now, just to dial up that difficulty a bit, I did 3 Andalusians and 1 Friesian crossbreed. Good luck! thought this was a Friesian is okay. Keep in mind the Andalusians are also a Baroque type breed and have a very similar body and head type. Did you figure out this isn't a Friesian? Let me show how easy it is to convert this from an Andalusian to a Friesian. Get it this time? Add leg feathers, thicken the mane, and change the coat color, and that's all you need to do. So now we're going to start work on the final piece. This would have been the piece you saw on the thumbnail. We're going to break this down stage by stage. So let's start with our body reference picture. This is Dolan. I took his picture in 2017. This is another reference picture I got off the internet of a mayor in full. I use this for a head reference rather than using Dolan's picture because when Dolan was going around the ring, his head was tucked in and I didn't feel that that was very flattering. Now these gems seem a little bit out of place, but I wanted something to reference the background color for. Something that was not typical of a standard Friesian piece of artwork. several pictures other than just the base reference picture that I used. Some I used for contrast and highlight colors, some I used for a color palette, and sometimes I used different pictures and even artwork for reference color as far as line and shading. In this case, I used this particular reference picture to get my color palette from, as there was a lot of contrast. Now, if you're working from a really kind of rough reference picture, like this picture of Dolan is really dark, and that we referenced at the beginning of the episode, where you may have an ambient room, or in this time we were in the Coliseum, where the lighting looked really good, but on camera it didn't. So you may have to go back through and blow the picture out with a photo editor in order to get all the contrast to figure out the tonal values you need to make the anatomy stand out and the definition for different muscle groups in the mane stand out. Regular photographs are not the only thing that I used. I did go online and look at a couple of different artistic rendered Friesian pieces. And while this artist has a very stylized version of it, I did really like how she used her lines of action to create and draw your eye through her artwork with the mane and tail. And so that was something that I wanted to embody within my own artwork. Just really love how she used that mane to create interest. Back to another picture of Dolan in the ring. This was taken from a different angle. But it gives you more of an idea of the richness of his mane and how long his mane was and how much volume I had to give to his mane. gotten this far in the video and you're kind of wondering what the color palette is, there is a mix of the umbers, siennas, and then a family of blues, and that blue is more of the thylacine and phthalo blues than it is the usual ultramarine blues. Found this video really informative. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to like and follow us on Facebook, and I'll see you back for the next video. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to be caught up on the latest from Morning Hawk Creations. Have a great day.